Okay, now it's the time to go to the last part of this morning with the third presenter, our third leader, and what a leader. We invested in IHS 4 years and a half ago, and during this 4 years and a half, you have just multiplied by 10 the number of towers, your revenue. You've moved from running in the red, of course, to running in the dark black. You have also passed something which is very important in your industry, Issam, which is the proof of the pudding, that you know how to generate cash and be self-sufficient. And more importantly, you've done it in a context which has been last year and the 6 months before quite a difficult one in your main country, Nigeria. And hopefully we start to feel a better environment in this important country for your business today. So we can just talk about hyper-growth, more than 10 times the growth over the last 4 years and a half. And I cannot give you, I'm not allowed, neither by our own compliance and by Issam, to give you the current value in our books of our stake in IHS, but I can tell you that the first investment we made, the first tranche we made, we invested 4.5 years ago, has already made much more than 10 times in terms of return for us, and the valuation which was associated to it. Issam, I should call you Sam Darwish. Please come on stage to introduce IHS, and if you can send the movie, please.
According to McKinsey, bringing broadband penetration levels in emerging markets to today's Western European levels could potentially add $300 to $420 billion in GDP and generate 10 to 14 million jobs. IHS Towers was founded in 2001 and works to support mobile network operators to help address this challenge. IHS has become the largest independent tower operator in Europe, Middle East and Africa by tower count, and the third largest independent multinational tower company globally, with over 23,000 towers. Analysts expect significant growth of the emerging markets telecom sector over the next few years, and we believe that our experience in Africa will enable us to meet the growing needs of network operators in the emerging markets. Our recently announced Kuwait transaction, which remains subject to certain conditions precedent, including regulatory approvals, would make us the first independent tower operator in the region. And our strategy is to work with local mobile network operators and authorities to further develop the telecoms infrastructure whilst expanding coverage and capacity to improve network quality and ultimately connectivity for local citizens. Innovation is also a key part of our growth strategy, with a focus on ensuring that our operations are both as efficient and sustainable as possible. Performance means customer satisfaction at IHS. This means, among other things, ensuring that our sites have adequate and sufficient power for the customer to operate their active equipment. At IHS Towers, we aim to maintain 99% plus availability. We focus on continuously decreasing fault rates and improving restoration time in order to minimize outages and optimize availability for our customers. Power is critical to meeting this objective. On our upgraded sites, we typically have a diesel generator and various other sources of power to help ensure consistent tower performance. And over the last couple of years, we have invested over $500 million in new green energy solutions, so that we can reduce our reliance on diesel as well as be more friendly to the environment. Our new hybrid energy solutions include state-of-the-art solar panels, deep cycle batteries, and new DC diesel generators. We are working with some of the world's leading engineers to achieve a combination of on- and off-grid solutions that will increase network uptime, decrease diesel dependency, and reduce CO2 emissions. Moreover, our corporate sustainability and responsibility strategy focuses on 4 pillars: ethics and governance, people, green energy and environment, and empowerment and education. An example of our community building initiatives is our flagship generator recycling program, which is now up and running in all countries of operation. This focuses on refurbishing generators that are being removed from our sites through the upgrade to hybrid energy power systems. These generators are then donated to local clinics, hospitals, and orphanages. IHS has also launched the IHS Academy, an online internal training portal for employees with over 600 bespoke training courses focused on developing the skills necessary to succeed in the telecom sector. The Academy works to further develop the company's culture of continuous learning and will help enable IHS employees to achieve their individual career goals. The mobile phone industry has changed the way people learn, communicate, and transact. We believe it is the very thing that will help catapult the development of emerging economies and enable them to reap the dividends of their young and vibrant growing populations. We aspire to be at the forefront of meeting the demand for an inclusive wireless communications future that helps improve the lives of billions of people all over the world.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Bernard, thank you for your kind words. Before I start, I would like again to say a big thank you to Frederic. We enjoyed a lot of successes together. I know this is the beginning of a journey for you, so we wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. And of course, we'd like to welcome Andre. I hope again we enjoy the same success or probably more successes in the future. 10 times, probably another 10 times won't be a bad thing in the next few years. So welcome, Andre. Now to the order of the day. Where is IHS at the moment? IHS at the moment has 23,000 towers over 6 countries. Actually, we are currently in 5, plus we've just signed Kuwait, so hopefully by Q1, subject to regulatory approvals, we should add Kuwait to our roster of operating countries. We are the largest tower company by tower count in the whole of Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, and we are one of the global leaders. We have raised more than $5.5 billion over the past 5 or 6 years. A good chunk of that came from Wendel. We have more than 2,000 direct employees, but it's important to note that over our existence, and we started, if you remember, as an engineering company that built sites in 2001, we have created this model that basically uses exclusive subcontractors who are encouraged, trained, guaranteed business by IHS. And if you include that pool of exclusive subcontractors to our workforce, we basically provide employment to 40,000 people in our jurisdictions, which gives you an idea of the reach and the influence of our company. We have done 15 acquisitions over the past 5 years. We have a tremendous success in M&A. Our ability to execute, I think, is unparalleled on the continent, and we are very proud of that. And as the video has shown, we take pride in our ability to deliver the right uptime of power, of services for the operators, because at the end of the day, the ultimate or most of the services provided on the continent and in emerging market is prepaid services. So if the sites are down, it means the operators lose revenue, and that revenue is not going to come back. So it's very important that we provide the best uptime for their services. This company has a diverse team. I mentioned 40,000 employment. We come from 22 or 23 different nationalities. Even at the top, you'll find me, originally from Lebanon, Ted from the USA, Adam, who is our newly recruited CFO, comes from England, David from Ireland. We have a different, diverse team. We are currently enforcing our team. Adam is our new CFO. We have just announced it 2 weeks ago. Adam used to be the CFO of JKN, which is a publicly traded company on the London Stock Exchange. JKN is a FTSE 100, and he has been CFO of publicly traded companies for 15 years. So this is the kind of caliber that we are currently bringing into IHS to strengthen at the top, and of course at the middle level, and constantly at the lower level. Where are we on IHS at the moment? So 9 months 2017 compared to 9 months 2016, we have enjoyed 20% improvement of our revenue. And of course, this is something to take pride on, and we are happy with that. But it has to be noted that this is at the backdrop of a very, very, very challenging time in Nigeria. So this supposedly success is not a real success by our standards and what we've been achieving over the past few years. But we are happy with that because Nigeria entered a recession. Nigeria is our biggest market. A significant portion of our revenue and EBITDA comes from that environment. 2016, or actually late 2015, oil dropped from 100 to 30s. Nigeria is largely dependent on oil for its foreign inflows. So basically, country entered into recession, currency devalued from 150 naira to the dollar to 305 formally, but in the parallel market it got to 500. So under this kind of very bad situation, our company was still able to achieve those kind of growth targets. And this, by the way, is the ultimate challenge to our model. I mean, people ask me sometimes, is this growth, is your business model, is the structure, is the contracts you have, are they sustainable? And this is the ultimate answer to that question. Yes, they are. But where is Nigeria at the moment? Nigeria has since emerged from its recession. The economy is now back revving. I won't say it's revving as to the levels that we wanted to rev at. Still some room to move forward. But the economy has since stabilized for sure. Currency has been at 305 for several months now. The Central Bank of Nigeria has created a parallel window or a second window for forex transaction, which is slightly higher than the 305, and it has been stable since. What I would like to note here also is that recently the Nigerian government issued a $3 billion sovereign bond. The bond had longer tenor than any bond before by Nigeria, yet it was 4 times oversubscribed, and it was issued at a pricing which is tighter than the previous bond they did. So that's an attestation of the international market appetite for Nigeria. So we are very proud of this. So we are, and we'll talk about that in a minute, we are definitely the leader, the tower company's leader in Africa. I mean, we have more towers than anyone else. We have more relationships than anyone else. And we will continue to focus on Africa. So there are other markets we'll look at. We'll continue to focus on our own existing markets. But we see ourselves now more of a global emerging markets tower company. We don't see ourselves as an African tower company only anymore. And in order to realize that vision, or to execute on that vision, we have entered the first tower deal ever in the Middle East region, in the whole actually Middle East and North Africa region. 25 countries, 0 tower deals have been done before. This would be the first. We entered a sale and leaseback agreement with Zain in Kuwait, which is the largest carrier or MNO in the country of Kuwait, to buy 1,600 of their towers, and we expect that deal to conclude in Q1 next year. So stepping back, what have we achieved so far? This company has been around for 16 years. And we have moved from a site-built company. I mean, we used to build these towers. We became the company of choice for anyone who wanted to build towers. Then in 2005, 2006, we converted the company into a site management model. The number of towers became large, and the complexities of running and operating the power component especially became complex, and the carriers did not want to do that, so we started doing it. And then around 2010, 2011, we converted the company into a site ownership model. The first equity raise we did was led by the IFC. It was 79 million, and it allowed us to build and acquire 400-500 sites then. And since then, we have raised, as I said earlier, 5.5 billion, done 15 transactions, and currently at 23,000 towers. And it's just the beginning. So what does that mean for us? This means, as I said earlier, we are the largest tower company in Africa by far. We are 4 or 5 times the size of some of our competition. What this means, we are the largest tower company in the whole of Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, and we are the 10th largest globally. And if you exclude single country tower companies or like China towers or the carrier owned, we do not see in our league basically, we become the 3rd largest independent multinational tower company in the globe, which is a very solid platform to allow us basically to become what we want, a global emerging markets tower company champion. Within our markets, we are the absolute leader. We are the #1 tower company in all of our markets, and as we bring in Kuwait, we will also be the #1 tower company in Kuwait. In 4 out of 5 markets, and when we bring in Kuwait, 5 out of 6 markets, we will be the only tower company with a significant market share. In Nigeria, which is a much larger environment, Nigeria is a country of 180 million people at the moment. The World Bank expects Nigerian population to surpass that of the United States by 2050. So it gives you an idea of the growth potential for that environment. So in Nigeria, we roughly own 55 or 54% of the total towers in the country. And if you look at the independent tower company share portion, we roughly operate at around 77% market share. So that's a significant and commanding position in that environment. The company has invested a lot of money and effort onto our systems and processes. We have one thing I want to highlight is the academy, which we've spoken about earlier. You've seen it in the video. The IHS Academy is a personal pet project of mine. This is something that I envisaged 4 or 5 years ago, and I thought this is extremely important for our development and for the development of the community around us. So finally, we launched it a few months ago, and it's an online portal basically that has around 600 courses available to all our employees and sometimes to some of our clients, etc., regulators, etc. A good part, so many of those courses are of course educational to develop their skills, broaden their knowledge base, etc. But a good part actually is about ethics, awareness, and in practical manners. So not only setting out the policies on how should you tackle a certain ethical situation, how should you tackle a certain complex governance-related matter, but no, it's practical. Like, what if a government official, for example, wants you to recruit one of his cousins? What do you do? So it goes to that level, and it's mandatory. So we're very, very proud of that academy, and we believe it's going to strengthen and enhance the quality of our operation. In terms of control, we have several control functions and processes. We have committees at the board level. We have established risk management function. We have several compliance functions established. We have an internal audit function. We have business continuity programs in motion. And we have been working for a while on the evaluation of our internal control over financial reporting, because we want to be SOX compliant. I mean, this is how advanced we want to be in terms of our compliance. And by the way, our internal audit department is independent, totally independent from management, and it directly works with the audit company, with the audit committee of the board. It has its own budget, its own mandate, and its own reporting lines. So what's next for us? This slide talks about our pillars or avenues for growth. Where is our growth going to come from? It's going to come from organic sources, and it's going to come from inorganic sources. The first 3 pillars, basically, or 3.5, constitute organic growth. First and foremost, of course, is co-location. That's what we do. we buy these tenants with a tenant, and we want more tenants to come and join on those towers. The second avenue of growth, which has become significant over the past few years, is if you are an existing tenant, you want to move from 2G to 3G, you need to pay some more money. If you want to move from 3G to LTE, some more. If you want to put more antennas, use more capacity, draw more power, you have to pay more money. And with this massive growth that we have seen in the number of subscribers, in data usage, amendments or enhanced revenue from single tenants has significantly become a significant portion of our growth. Thirdly, of course, is building new sites. As a company, it's always been in our DNA to build new sites, new towers. We see a significant opportunity to do that and continue to do that. Over the past 6 years, we have built roughly 6.5, close to 7,000 sites. This gives you an idea of how important this part of our business is to our growth story. Then, of course, new verticals. The tower on its own is critical and is important, but over time, I believe these towers need to be connected with fiber. If we are to progress the networks from 3G into LTE, with this massive data usage growth that is expected with the enhancement of the services and the apps, etc., and the further reach on the continent and beyond, we believe that the connection of the towers with fiber is essential, and we think we will benefit from that either by investing the capital ourselves or by somehow accessing the investment to someone else, or accessing the access to our rights, licensing the access to our sites to someone else to do the investment against a certain use fee. So we'll see. And lastly, of course, M&A expansion. We have grown the company largely by acquisitions over the past 5-6 years. Africa has still some opportunities to grow vis-a-vis acquisitions. We have some countries that we are still monitoring. We have just done the first deal in the Middle East. We think the Middle East has several countries that could be interesting to us, and of course Asia, potentially LATAM. So a lot of room to grow vis-a-vis M&A. To touch quickly on the markets we operate in, so this gives you an idea of the expected organic growth that is still out there from our markets. We expect the number of SIM cards, that's basic voice, to increase from 245 million to 308 million within the next 4 or 5 years. We expect the number of broadband connections, which is data connections, to increase from 73 million to 180 million. So that's substantial growth that still needs to happen. We expect 3G penetration to move from 34% to 57%, and 4G LTE is at a very low rate of almost 1%, almost nothing. Many of the operators we work with have just launched their LTE expansion, and we expect to benefit substantially from that as the customers start rolling out this kind of services. What does this mean to us? It means to us the capacity, actually the usage per tower is going to expand, which means more antennas, more power, more money for us, of course. And of course, it means additional towers will need to be built. Talking about the potential for M&A, this slide basically highlights the various buckets we are interested in. Of course, Sub-Saharan Africa remains our main market. We want to continue to be focused there. And as I said earlier, we have few opportunities that we are eyeing and will continue to eye. The MENA region is a very interesting area for us. 600 million people, roughly, 0 tower deals. We are the first, and we will pursue that region rigorously. Asia also is a very interesting space. But probably, even if you exclude China and probably India, you still have 1.6, 1.7 billion people. You still have a lot of interesting markets there. And we are also actively pursuing some of the opportunities there. This gives you the landscape of our peers, who is out there. I think this is one of those interesting businesses that probably has more on the supply than on the demand side. we are not as many as you would think, given that there are millions of towers out there, and there are probably hundreds of thousands, if maybe at the least tens of thousands of towers that are among willing buyers or inclined sellers, I mean. So there is a lot of opportunity to buy, and effectively this is the landscape. Of all the tower companies, I can say that at least for us and for American Towers, we have both shown the desire, the will, and have the capacity to expand. And I think we are both probably the best positioned to become consolidators of towers all over the global emerging market scene. In conclusion, regional and global leader, robust financial profile, operations in large markets, clear market leader in all of our markets, well positioned to become the foremost emerging market tower industry consolidator. And this company remains led by the founder. I mean, I'm committed again for the next 5-10 years. Most of the management team is committed for the next 5-10 years, and will continue to drive long-term success. On this note, thank you very much.
I know that now, Issam, it's a part you like the least.
Yes.
Questions. So the first question I have for you is, what it is there anything which keeps you awake at night today? What is the biggest risk you have in mind and concerns you the most, looking forward for the next 1 or 2 years?
I think it's probably people. I mean, people is the single most important thing in our business. You have to find the right people. You have to find the right people that are willing to operate in critical and tough environments like ours. And you have to find ethical, strong, moral character people. And this is not this combination is not easy. And then you have to build them over time. And then you have to manage their sensitivities and their issues and their desires. So that probably is the most complex part. I mean, I think everything else is probably a challenge also, but to some extent we figured it out. The people remains the most ongoing part.
Especially in the type of environment where you are operating, where you need to have the best people with the toughest rules in terms of compliance.
Yes. Yeah.
And to keep them motivated. It's certainly you're not only managing towers but also
managing people.
Talents.
Yes.
Any question from the room? Oh, it's fine.
Yeah, good afternoon, David Salon, Kepler Cheuvreux. I have some question regarding your debt structure. Can you give us your debt structure, your financial leverage you expect by the end of the year? And regarding the acquisition of the towers in Kuwait, how do you expect to finance it? Do you require some fresh money? Thank you.
So we do not report on our debt structure at the moment. I mean, we are a private company. I mean, we are different than some of our peers that we are not consolidated by Wendel. So we do not report or disclose on our debt structure. What I can tell you on the Kuwait transaction is we do not need external equity to finance that. But typically of these acquisitions, whenever we embark on these acquisitions, we typically use local debt or at the asset level. We leverage the acquisition typically to an acceptable level, to a very acceptable level. But from an equity point of view, we don't need the money. We have adequate resources within.
Maybe I can just say one thing, that the IHS debt level is, by all international standards in this industry, quite low.
Very low.
Very low. And it's normal because IHS has been on a very fast-growing path. So you cannot use debt as much as some extreme players like SBA are using.
7 times.
7 times we are very far from this. A complex and very simple question for you from the webcast. What is the business model of independent towers? Why do telcos sell towers? Well, for some telcos, I know some who are still reluctant. What do they sell to independent players like you?
So the business, the model is simple. If country issues licenses to 3-4 carriers, mobile carriers, cell phone mobile carriers, each of these guys are under certain network rollout obligations, so they need to build coverage and then they need to build capacity as the customers start accumulate into their networks. And if it's easy to say, fine, each of these carriers will build their own towers, will build their own systems, but then effectively you end up with a country whereby in each location you have 2 or 3 or 4 towers. That is totally inefficient. Because in Africa, for example, where power is an issue, each of these towers, for example, need a diesel generator or some combination of solar and diesel. Effectively having 3 towers or 4 towers means 3 different diesel generators, 3 cost bases basically feeding into a network. So it's definitely a very inefficient model. What we do, we come in, we basically say, look, forget about each of you guys building your tower. We build one tower. You guys share against a use fee. Why it's a successful model is because the sum of the cost basis, the 3 cost bases, is much higher than what we charge, or the total that we charge. The 3 operator, we make money, they reduce the cost, the regulator is happy because it's more efficient, and then the customer, who is the ultimate, the end user, who is the ultimate beneficiary, gets cheaper service. So that's why it's a successful business model, and that's why telcos like it and have adopted it over time.
Other question? Yes, Pierre.
Pierre Bosset from HSBC. I have 2 or 3 questions, but I'm not sure that you are going to answer. First of all, on the profitability of IHS, given what has happened in Nigeria, can you give us some more granularity on what has been the evolution in this year? Secondly, on MTN, which has become one of your largest shareholders with 29%, have they stated any intention on what they want to do in the future with a stake in IHS? And lastly, how efficient are the indexation clause on the contract in Nigeria? Can you make up, even if it's with a lag effect, all what you lost in terms of currency movement in your contract?
So you are right on the first question. I cannot answer. On MTN, they are definitely one of our largest customer, or one of our largest shareholders. But I'm not going to make statements on their behalf, on their intentions. I'm sure you guys talk to them all the time. You can ask them. But I know for a fact that MTN is an African investor, is a long-term African investor. But it's interesting. On the third point, I won't go into details, but we do operate a solid part of our business, and our contracts is foreign currency related portions. And if you saw at the first slide, it's despite even a very, very challenging situation in Nigeria, our business held, which may lead you to the conclusion, you, not me, that the contract and the foreign structure has held very well.
Well, and on the first part of the question,
you have to be okay. Go.
we cannot give numbers, but we can say that despite very tough environment in Nigeria, the profitability of IHS has kept increasing.
He's saying this, yes.
Any other question from the room? Yes, please.
Elizabeth Miliadis, Bank of America. I had 2 questions. Firstly, on the lease-up rate, with the continued move towards 3G and 4G, where can we see the lease-up rate move towards? And secondly, I understand you've spent a fair amount of capital on moving the generators from diesel-based towards a hybrid, more solar-based system. What kind of cost savings can we see, and how much have we realized to date, and is there still a fair way to go there? Thank you.
Thank you. So on the first question, I think our peers and the industry does report on lease-up because we thought at some point of time that this is a good indicator of how successful the business is. If you look at, for example, where our developed market peers are, American Tower or the likes, they're above 2.5, 2.6. So and these guys are a very developed, they've been there for many years, you could say 10-year plus for sure, which gives you an idea of where the long-term horizon probably should be. I mean, you could even argue that like in emerging or underdeveloped environments, the ratio over time should be higher. You can argue that. But again, it's hard to know where we should get long term. Having said that, what I wanted to say earlier is when I spoke about the avenues of growth is that co-location basically gets measured with the tenancy ratio. That's fine. That's one aspect of the growth. But amendments does not get measured by that. And what we have seen over the past few years is a significant part of the growth has come from that. So single tenants, moving from 2G to 3G to LTE, eventually at some point of time to 5G. This is also has become a significant part of our growth, which is not captured by the lure indicator only. The second question was, was the generator, yes. So we have invested, as you rightfully noted, more than $500 million over the past 2.5 years, I would say, in efficient systems. Whenever we buy a site or a tower from an operator, or when we build our own, we do not like diesel. I mean, we do not like diesel because of its cost. We do not like diesel because of its exposure that it gives us to the international oil market fluctuations. We do not like diesel because of its emissions and its effect on the environment. So that investment for us is critical and is important, and we have done it on a substantial number of our sites, and we'll continue to do that, by the way. And we have, I think we've disclosed this maybe a couple of years ago, we have on average, or in many cases I would say, we have been able to cut our cost on the diesel side by at least 50% by implementing those solutions.
You are actually a very big power producer.
Very.
In Nigeria.
And
a very last question from the room. No?
Good.
Thank you very much, Issam.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Always good to have you on stage.